So welcome again to the Spanish Film Fórum organized by Podemos Manchester Circle. Well, after this film, I don't know how you might be feeling. Maybe confused, with rage, anger, frustration, even fear, like the first time I saw it. So first, well, we would like to emphasize the importance of this documentary as the relevance that it has acquired lately, and not only of what it means. Well, it's maybe the most important documentary done so far to denounce all those tortures or those police abuse that are like everyday life in Spain so much since the transition. It keeps on happening, and lots of organizations such as National Amnesty and European organizations, such as it was seen on the film, are denouncing it continuously, but it doesn't stop happening. And it's not only torture in police stations, it's as well like the law that permits imprisoning activists without proofs. It's also the police actuation politically induced in order to turn pacific demonstrations into riots, setting fire to bins and stuff like that, and then blaming the demonstrators. It's also the denial of police to identify themselves with their number. When they are obliged by law, they never do it. It's also the systematic aggressions against journalism who want to give a true picture of what's going on. It's also that police's word comes first before anything that the people that is in jail can say, or any of the witnesses. That has no validity in front of police word. It's also the silence around everything that happens in police stations. They're not allowed recording cameras to see what's going on. And also, even in the cases that some of those police have been sentenced and judged and sentenced with prison, they are pardoned by the government with indults and stuff like that. So it's a whole lot of stuff that, well, we believe that it's not fair, and that's why here, well, to raise the awareness of people against all those problems like the documentary has shown, we have here today two special guests. It's Elena Sanchez, a member of Podemos Liverpool. She's an anthropologist and also a human rights specialist. And also we have David Menendez, senior lecturer in education studies in Metropolitan University of Manchester. Welcome. So, first of all, like, how can we take advantage of a systemic crisis like the one we are living to enhance and democratize police and other law enforcement agencies?
The crisis that we are living in the south of Europe, for example, we are suffering, like, since 2008, we can say, like, different attacks, we can say, to our social life, our cultural life, etc. So the thing is, like, if we have pay attention about, for example, this documentary, we can see obviously that they are changing the law to make sure that they are trying to make sure that they can do all that they want. They are using, and when I say they, I'm talking about the establishment. So they are trying to make the law, all the amendments like the penal code, to make sure that they can, they have like the power, and they have like the permission, we can say, to do what they want to do and to change everything, just to prepare the law and everything, and in the way that they want to. So the thing is, like, we as citizens, we should try to think about these problems that we are living every day, every week, every month, I mean, in our daily life. So if we don't pay attention about this, if we don't think about that, we are not going to change anything. Maybe we can write in Facebook, I don't like this, this system is it's a chaos or something like that. But we need to do something else if you want to change that. Sorry, I'm thinking about all these questions. If you want maybe to say something.
I think I have a different view of how these things work, because we always tend to think that it's someone else outside all of us. So we are talking about them, but we are not understanding. It's like what is happening in this example is like how institution is failing at all the levels, but we are not very taking into account that institutions are the ones that regulate our lives. So we are part of that institutions. Even if I'm not working for the police, even if I'm not working, we are connected to that institutions. Are the ones that regulate the discourses that we use to talk about the world, regulate reality, what is true, what is false. It's very risky to try to make changes, and it's probably what you are saying, like this kind of changes on the surface, because what we really need to do is like changes in all the system. Sometimes we are forgetting that changing the system is going to change the way that we see the world. It's going to change all of us in the way that we consider what is real, what is not real, what is true, what is false. Like these cases, they are saying like, nowadays what is true is what the police say or what a lawyer say or someone in that kind of institutions. So I think that the key point that I try to raise is the idea that we are all part of that institutions, and if we really want to change something, it's going to affect us. It's going to affect the way that we live. It's going to affect the way that we understand ourselves, and it's going to affect the way that we understand the world. So it's a big change. We are not talking about something easy that could happen from one day to another. It's about changing the lenses that we use to look at the world and to understand what is happening all the time. So I think it's at that level, like where like we are being realistic, not thinking that in terms of making like political changes, things are going to change in a couple of years or 3 years. We are talking about changing the lives of all of us, the way that we interact. We are talking about the police, but we are also talking about other institutions, educative institutions. Like all of them were involved in this case. I'm talking about the hospitals. I'm talking about legal system. I'm talking about the way that people react to all these things. So it's a big change what we are trying to do.
I have been trying to have a look about the new citizen safety law, and if we think about these three words like citizen safety law, it sounds it's a curiosity, okay? Like safety, they use all the time these words like safety to tell us that it's good for us. It's just for your safety, okay? So this law, okay, and if you don't mind, just to give you the main points of this new law that we have right now in Spain, they are trying just to make sure that they are used the absolute majority that they have, the Conservative Party in Spain, Partido Popular, okay? It was in December 2014 that they have like proved this law in Spain, and it has called also like a gag law, a legal aberration, like an attack on civil liberties, etc. As I said before, the Popular Party says the needs of reforming the penal code is a guarantee of project for citizens. Okay, I'm just reading literally some information that I have taken from the law, from newspapers and etc. The original draft included heavy fines for street protesters who carry signs harmful to Spain or the regions. And even more, they are granted private security guards the right to help the police break up demonstrations. So they are trying to use like private guards to help the police, the security forces, okay? And the thing is like they have tried to change from faults, minor faults, to make a strong punishment to these type of faults, okay? 5 short things about the new minor criminals offenses. For example, to practice a sport in public spaces where you do not have permission and when it exists risk or damage people or goods. I don't know if they are going to pay maybe gyms for everyone or something like that. Number 2, to climb buildings or monuments without permission. Maybe they are thinking about Greenpeace in Galagarrobico and Almería in the south. It's like I have said before, they are preparing every fault for every reason. So this is for Greenpeace. Okay, I'm going just to write a new law, okay? Number 3, to move fences or other elements which have been placed by security forces. Do you remember the Rodeo al Congreso? Like the demonstrations in front of the Congress, okay? It's like the police again, the objective is the security. The last one, to celebrate meetings or demonstrations in public spaces. Maybe they are thinking in Podemos, not sure. And the last one is the occupy any property or building against any law or decision against the landlord's wish. Evictions, desahucios. They have prepared, this is like the new minor criminal offences. I'm not a lawyer, but I think like if you change from minor fault to maybe bigger punishment, maybe we are not going to do different things, okay? Can I maybe explain a little bit more? So, new, and I love this, new serious criminal offences. To take drugs in public places, and this one, to disturb in public and cultural acts, and in religious places, where there are a lot of people. Maybe they are thinking in femmes, okay? These women that they stay in different places, you know, no? Naked. Perfect laws. Number 3, to use without authorization pictures or personal database from authorities and members of security forces. If maybe we don't have the opportunity to record these, for example, these videos that we have seen now, what can we do? Maybe to explain what they have been doing, maybe these security forces, okay? Because they say it's to avoid the risk of personal and family security from security forces, okay? Security all the time. And to refuse of breaking up from meetings and protests in public places when the authorities tell to do it. Maybe they are thinking about when the people, they say, I'm not going to break up the demonstrations, I sit down here. And they say, okay, so you don't want to break up demonstration? Okay, so this is new serious criminal offences. Go ahead if you don't mind. 2 new very serious criminal offences. Meetings and protests non-announced or forbidden in public buildings which provides basic public services to the community. I don't know if they are thinking maybe in banks for these basics, these things that provide public services, we can say. I don't know, maybe if you have seen, because I come from the south of Spain, in Andalusia, and like flamencos dancing inside the banks that they have tried just to make a demonstration inside the bank, okay? And I repeat, new very serious, okay? And the last one, the new very serious criminal offences, protesting in front of the Congress, the Senate or the regional assemblies is considered a serious offence. So a perfect law, it's like, if you just think about this, it's like perfect, you know? We take this offense, this law. And the things like they are trying, and this is very, very horrendous, okay? They want to standardize legal authority to security forces. So that means they authorize the security forces to dictate orders and prohibitions, to enter and register residences and houses, to identify people, to prevent crimes or penalize offences. This is the first time that the security forces can make, like, I have translated that, corporal cacheos to people, to close and to evacuate buildings and properties and to use video cameras. So now the security forces, they can do this without any permission, okay, so they can do it. And of course, economic sanctions, of course. So they are using the excuse of security, they want to slash citizens' rights and eliminate legal checks, okay?
I found it like very interesting how they develop this law, like in the way that they are trying to colonize the language, in the way that they are like, and on the one hand they are leaving some of the concepts quite open. So what is this thing? I don't know, what is this place? What is there? So it's like it allows, like the system works, like how they reinterpret, how they understand the law later at different levels and how it works. It's like giving to them the perfect tool to control all of us, and not only to control what we do, but also what we are. So in order to create categories of all the citizens. So if you are against this thing, if you are doing these things, you are against us, you are in the bad side. And again, working with this like very like simplistic way of understanding the world, this binary system. We have the good people and we have the evils. If you are doing these things, there is not a middle point. You are on the wrong side, and law is going to be against you. So you have always to be the kind. They are also creating the kind of citizen that they are expecting. The one that is like very shy, the one that is scared, the one that is like worried, like to work in that way. So it's a way of creating some kind of totalitarianism without being a totalitarianism. It's in the way that they control. They are not only control what we do, so they colonize all the aspects of our life in the way that we use public spaces. So they are not only telling to us what we can do against the others, it's also about how you are going to use the public spaces. How you are going to, issues about like private like spaces, as you were saying, banks. So they are like looking at these things as well, how they like maintain the kind of it's a way of perpetuate power as well, like the system working, creating new ways of understanding different concepts. But I found it like very, very problematic in the way that they are trying to do these things. The other thing that I would like to add is like probably for people that are from England, they are like aware, I don't know the Spanish people, about this case that they had. Well, I think it was around in the 90s, like this Lawrence inquiry, where they start to change the law in England, because it was when they realized, and they introduced a concept, a legal concept, that it was like institutional racism. It's when they realized something happened in London. They found a black guy was killed in London. And in the way that the police proceeded, the way that the police was like dealing with that case, it was quite strange. So they reopened the case, something that it was not allowed in England, and they go again through that case, and they discovered that the police were acting in a different way because that person was black. But it was not only the police, it was also like the law system and the way that the hospital was dealing with this. Everything was corrupt there, in the same way as they were showing here. They were like supporting each other because they were part of the same system. Probably the different to what we are finding with this documentary is like it really had a big impact. They reopened the case, they realized, they introduced a concept in the law that it was like this institutional racism. They developed a document with 70 points to tackle these ideas. I'm not saying now that it was successful, we still like have all these issues on the system. So this is what I was saying, like we could be quite idealistic, thinking that we can introduce changes, develop new laws, but the system is rotten. So it's something more complex. Even if we develop like these 70 points, 80, 90, 100, like still like these different levels, how it works, how we understand the citizen, how we understand our power to decide. If we don't really change the engine, it's not going to have a big change. And in England it was like something that they are still debating about it. It's still open, it's changing the law, but institutional racism is still part of all the institutions. And they were like realizing it was not only happening in the legal system, it was happening in the schools, it was happening in hospitals. People were treated different just because of race. And it's like still there, they know about it, they try to introduce changes, but it's been more difficult than this. So I'm quite concerned in the way that in Spain, this kind of things is not having any impact. If we look at the United States, we have different cases. From an academic point of view, they have something that is called critical race theory. That is a way of dealing with some of these issues about racism, where they use narratives, where they use like stories from people to show that the system is not working. And they start like showing some stories that demonstrate that the legal system was not fair for anyone. Quite obvious, quite clear for everyone, not changing anything. Because we were not really changing the system, we just like putting, like we say in Spanish, plasters everywhere. So, but the wound is still open. So, it's difficult, and I like how you were analyzing all of these things, because our issues about the language that they were using, in the way that they were understanding the other citizens, they were creating categories, and it's in that way what I was like saying before. Like these institutions are not only there to like organize our lives, it's like also like telling us who we are and how we have to act and all these things. So it's more like complex than it looks.
Yeah, well, the film points out many of those things. One of the things that you were commenting on is taking out the public space from citizens. It's really, really clear in Barcelona. I'm from Barcelona, and it's happening all the time. For example, the year after the big demonstration in Plaza Catalunya of 15M, that there was for 3 months or more people living in the square. What happened next winter? A massive ice skating yard was built there. And it's there every year since then, avoiding any possibility to go there, settle your tent and start protesting against anything. Also the city center of Barcelona, it's like all the neighbors have been evicted, but there, and it's just a massive, like, let's say, I don't know how to say escaparate. Shop front, thank you, for all the tourists. That it's alright to have tourists, but it doesn't have to be incompatible with people who actually have lived there forever. So yeah, like they are taking it with laws, they are doing it with urbanism plans, they are doing with everything in every aspect. So well, somebody wants to say anything about the film, about all the stuff? Yes?
My point is, as a policeman, you've got the social responsibility of making people obey the law, because that's your job. However, as a citizen, you've got the social responsibility to keep the peace in society. If you know that the law is wrong and the law is going against a peaceful society, and it goes against the freedom of the citizens, how can we give that power to a policeman to go against a law that is so clearly unfair and is putting the citizen in danger? So how can we give that power to police?
I think it's a difficult question, because it's this issue again coming about how we manage power, how we balance power, how we give power to someone more than other. Some of the problems that we have when we are talking about power, and who have the power and how we use the power, because power is not something that you have, it's something that you use. Is the idea of thinking that we can manage a point where it's a balance. But that's very, very difficult. That's impossible. That's what is politics about. It's like balancing, like distributing power. Police, like this division between being a human being and being a police, is something that they made them to believe. So there's like compatibilities there. If people go against the system, we have like a lot of examples where they can challenge this idea. But they need to change the system. They need to give them tools. At the moment, it would be challenged the way that police works. Okay?
So those are problems that had been discussed during the French Revolution, and perhaps, I think there is a lot to learn from the French Revolutions, what happened there, not only in terms of debates, also in terms of debate, but also in terms of action about these things, because we are in a sort of similar historical moment, which might possibly bring about a constituent moment, whereby we do away with this system. And historically, oligarchies always follow the same evolution. So more repression, more police, because they get smaller, because the oligarchy is not a unified thing. They are in war between themselves, and members of the oligarchy drop off the system as well, and they need more and more police. I mean, it's describing the classical treatise of tyranny.
What I found interesting in what was happening in Spain, if we look back at what happened, I would say like 10 years ago, they make believe, all of us, that we need more police. And at some point, they start to make contracts to more and more police. And at some point, what they were doing is like lowering the quality of the police. That if there is like some way of measuring quality, so a lot of people have access to the police, because it was happening what you are saying, like they want more. But the problem to me is when they make people believe that we need it. But these police were there to defend them, so they create an image, on the one hand, that police is there to help all of us, and hiding that police is there also to keep the system safe, as it was it looks now. So I think we had a problem in Spain with that issue. Like we opened the doors to have a big group of police, and now what is happening? It's like too many police, and we were like basically thinking more on the quantity than on the quality, I would say. And this is probably one of my, this is a very personal opinion, because I don't have very good experiences with police. Okay, when I did, I used to have piercings, I used to look quite bad for the police or whatever. My brother was also something similar, like this happened just because they made a mistake with his name. So it made me think about like the quality of how these people like can resist or develop any kind of resistance, because maybe they found that having more police and this kind of police, that they were not going to develop any kind of resistance to the system, because they found a chance to get power very easy for some people, that they were not going to have any chance to get like a safe job. They have like quite safe jobs, but they were saying these people were found doing something very bad, torturing people, and they have now like this 1,500, 1,700 euros per month. So like, it's quite, if you show this thing to people, I would say, oh, it's not bad to become a police, without thinking like the responsibilities that is to be a police.
Yeah, it's a very difficult problem in any society, is that question of the force, physical force, that just follows the instructions of the laws that can be changed so easily by people who don't necessarily have our best interests at heart. But I think there are directions we can pursue with energy. The human rights area clearly is one that has born from that sense that there is almost like a higher law that all of us should work towards, even though it's a very sort of low base. It's almost like lowest common denominator rights, but surely there are things we can do to start there, and almost to have that as a mandatory training for all police, but all citizens, for all school children, that says everyone has an expectation and a right that this thing we call the police has to first and foremost obey these higher laws. So that's perhaps one area in which it would take a lot of work, but that can be pushed to say, yes, there's the local law, if you like, the national law, but there is this higher law. And then in the case of recruitment, so recruitment of police, I take a view that says that what we saw in the film, where they recruit themselves and they recruit in their own image, and then it turns into a very vicious cycle. I think that's clearly a conflict of interest, both basic, and I think it would be very useful to have localized citizen recruitment forums almost, that they can start to develop the standards that they expect from their local police forces, with the power of veto and recall, those kinds of, similar to, like we talk about politicians, but almost seeing these public servants in a similar mode, that you say, if there's behaviour that it falls outside of the standards accepted by the local community, there should be an immediate route to have that publicly addressed and dealt with. And then a third, final aspect that I'll shut up, is the power of whistleblowers to be handsomely rewarded whistleblowers that can come out and be fully protected by society and have done a great thing, and just the deterrent effect of that helping to sort of keep, maybe not fix it, but to keep some of the worst excesses at bay, deterrent rather than after the effect. So I wouldn't lose all hope. I say there are lots of things we can do, but it's a very, very difficult problem.
The issue with the human rights. The human rights were written after the Second World War. They were there. The first thing that you are going to find in a state is like they should be public, and they should be available for all of us in all the educative institutions. Have you seen that thing on your school? Have you seen any of your? I always ask my students when I start to explain about who knows the human rights. Have you ever seen them? They start to think it's a book, it's something very long. No, it's 2 pages. Have you seen them in your school? Have you seen them anywhere? In the university? I'm teaching about this thing, and I don't have it in the room. So they say the first thing is just on the first thing saying this thing, and it's not. The second bit is like, not all the countries have clear. There is a conflict, for example, in the United States. The students, they have very clear that they couldn't have anything superior to their constitution. There's not any other law possible. It's first our constitution, and then we can discuss about human rights. The third thing about the human rights, are not compulsory at all. So like just very good ideas that I would like to see, and you make a good point. How we need to think on how to like make them work.
We have a Human Rights Act in this country. It's not brilliant, but it's in law, which the current government, part of the current government is keen to tear back. And across the European project, there is a platform to work with, shall we say, rather than it being nothing.
Yeah, it's good to see that we are doing things, but on the other hand, like also seeing that the government could say, oh, we are doing all these things. What I was talking with some people before. Apart of the universal human rights, we have the universal rights of the children, whatever. And they try to to put this thing like, okay, in a country where like 30% of the children live on poverty. So we are still being very proud about, oh yeah, and we promote them in other countries. So it's like, it's a kind of fallacy. Like, it's good to try, but we need to be realistic in the way that we have not achieved a lot when we have this, we're supposed to be the more advanced countries. And we have like these levels of poverty, we don't respect this law, every time we go against them. The same in Spain, like, okay, like when you read the human rights and you say like, they are very basic, and again the issue with language that you were raising, like, it's again, it's only a document and it could be interpreted in different ways. So they play with these things all the time. So it's quite tricky, but I think it's a good line to work.
But the thing is, like, it sounds good to have human rights in your constitution. It sounds good. Everyone, well, which country don't support the human rights? Yes, we have to sign here. Okay, that's fine, but I don't mind to follow that. Any countries really support human rights. It's only 30 articles, and they don't support them, because if you support them, you have to make sure that first of all, education. If you want that the people believe in them, you have to teach them human rights from primary, from all your years in the school. But now we are seeing, for example, in Spain, no, we don't have money for public education. So we are going just to make sure that we are going just to teach maybe three subjects: maths, Spanish, and
this is what they
English
do,
maybe.
This is what they are changing now.
And that's
the
all.
System here.
Okay, that's all. Maybe 8 hours of Spanish, 8 hours. So it's like, and no music, nothing to think. Okay, nothing. Don't think. It's
So
free.
they're introducing now chess.
Okay.
We're discussing now that
That's
chess could be like one of the subjects, and everybody's very happy about it.
Exactly, but I feel like we need to rewrite our ideas. It's like, I'm thinking right now, what have you said? Sorry, I don't know your name. Talking about the police, and I mean, I have thinking, because while you were talking about, for example, in Portugal, about the Salazar dictatorship, how this situation changed. From a point of view, when the soldiers decided not to be part of the power establishment, well, maybe it could be like something beautiful to say, but it's when they decided to be part from the 99% of the citizens. Maybe we need to rewrite our speech and of course our structure, because if we want to change our daily life, we should try to think about this. Human rights, very beautiful, but do we follow them? We want to have these human rights in our daily life. No charter, no justice, freedom, like freedom of speech, freedom of being, of wearing what you want to wear.
I think also when we are talking about human rights, we don't understand the complexity behind them. Like, it's just like freedom of speech. We have a very clear example to what happened now. Like, what is the freedom of speech? Is freedom of speech to be able to say whatever you want about the religion of the others? Only about few religions? Only like, so not everyone. It's like very, very complex. And again, with the human rights come another element, this Eurocentric, or we could say like Western view of the world, and how it should be like, it's colonial way of. We need a base, of course. So it's like, and have very good ideas. I'm not against them, but it's like we need to I don't know, to work with them again in a different way, or try to do something else. Because at the moment, this thing is what I say. It was said after the Second World War, and it's still there. We need something like this, a set of values. It's not about like we are living in a kind of postmodern world where all the categories are quite fluid, not very clear. But sometimes, and for some issues, we need to negotiate some kind of something.
A big political strategy in this that was shown in the documentary when this guy was saying that there's no happy ending in the Spanish story, because there's not going to be this honest judge or this honest policeman. They're just defending the institutions, and they're defending the impunity, and they are sending a clear message to everyone that everyone who protests, everyone who writes in social media is becoming sort of a terrorist. We are threatening the good ones who are on the other side. So I think
we've been talking a lot about the police, so I just wanted to say that we have a very big responsibility in fighting against that message and trying to explain everyone that this is totally unfair, that it was like in the book in 1984, because they start talking about peace when they really mean war, and they start talking about justice when they really mean torture, and we really have the responsibility.
Alice in Wonderland.
We really have the responsibility of telling everybody that this is not this way. We have to do our best, we have to demonstrate, we have to explain that there's no citizen, there's no security, and there's nothing in this law and in these politics.
I'm a bit disappointed for someone who thinks that I've been sit here, not because I disagree with them, but I think I'm very impartial. How many of us have been in the shoes of a police officer? How many of us know what they are dealing with every day? And most of the times we are happy with it. But nobody questions that. Yeah? It's about who's got the monopoly of violence. It's the state. And when it works for us, it's fine.
I think what you are saying is coming to my initial point. It's like, we are part of the police as well. They maintain the system that where we live, and some of these practices need to be accepted, and are accepted by us indirectly, even when we are saying like we are against the police. If something happened to all of us, we go to the police, of course, and we feel safer if we see police in the street. But there's a kind of fallacy what we are saying, like we are against the police, or we are against a system that create the kind of police that maybe we are not happy about. But we understand that, and this is your point, like we need to give them opportunities, maybe to change the system in the way that we can't see what you are saying, the point of view, because they never participate.
And for example, my personal view, I'm not going to say they are citizens police, of course. I'm not against them, but I'm thinking right now, one thing. I'm thinking about the video last year in Melilla, where those people tried to get to the coast, and the police were shooting them with balls to try to avoid that those people arrived to the coast to save their life. And 1 year ago, 15 people died in those situations. So I would like to ask, for example, those police, why have you been shouting to them? Because you are receiving orders, that okay, but can you think what are you doing in that moment? Because you are shooting to them. So what is the point in that situation, for example? I'm not against them, but the thing is like, I would like to see that sometimes, in some situations, they can have the choice to say, I'm not going to do that, for example. Because how can you explain that video? It's very hard to explain to citizens that situation.
But relating to what we were saying about the culture of the police, that reminded me of Stanford Prison Experiment. I think it was in the 1970s. I think it might have been a psychologist called Millikan who performed it. He took a group of normal, perfectly ordinary students from Stanford University, divided into two random groups, and made them role play. One set was supposed to be the prisoners in a prison, and another set was supposed to be the prison guards. And the guards had a series of, possibilities to give orders to the prisoners had to obey them in theory. And I don't know how long the experiment was supposed to go on for, maybe a couple of weeks, but they had to cancel it just a couple of days in, because the prison guards, which were just randomly assigned students from Stanford, started abusing the prisoners so much that it just became dangerous, that you might end up having someone kill themselves or someone really hurt someone else. The prisoners started to behave really, how would you say, impotently. They just crouched down and accept all the punishment they were taking. And that's the situation when you pit one group against another group, like when policemen are told that we are the enemy, people in the street. That's what causes, lots of ordinary citizens demonise the police. Lots of policemen are taught to demonise the ordinary citizens who are demonstrating. And that's immediately, the moment you set people apart in those two groups and you tell them that the other's the enemy, that's where you can't find any point in common. And I don't know the solution to this, because of course, particularly in Spain, hopefully you'd want to get good people to join the police, but as long as they join a force which has got this culture in it, they will be perverted into believing the rest of people are the enemy. And you won't get that many, particularly in Spain, you won't get that many good people who believe in human rights joining the police force when the police are seen this way. So it's a bit of a... I mean, I don't know the solution, I just wanted to...
I think one of the points, and it's linked with what Javi was saying, is like we tend to think, to disconnect this idea. What we are discussing is not a problem of bad people and good people. It's a problem of institutions creating images, creating people, pushing people to them and telling them how they should construct their identity, how they should act. And that's the problem. And what we were discussing in practical terms is how we can change the institutions in the way that they are allowed to open spaces where they could be, the voice could be raised in a different way, power could flow in a different way, rather than in the classical way that we are used to see. Like if you are in this institution, you become that institution. Forget about being human, even like that's not possible. We always, when we are oppressed by an institution, we are always finding new ways of construct our identity and some spaces of freedom. But it's like, it's a problem of institutions. Institutions are not human, but they are becoming so complex and so embedded in our lives that they control our lives, they control what we are, to the point that they can destroy our lives. And it happened with this case. And she said, like, how through going to the prison institution, she became a completely different person, and she was not able to deal with this idea. And she changed the way. So when we are talking about the police, we need to be like, be very careful. And I do it because I'm said since the beginning, I'm not very objective when I talk about police for personal experiences. But I try to take the other point of view. It's like people, like others, and there's like an institution involving in the way that they construct their identity and all of us. And this is why we were saying there is about the human rights. It's not about opposing human rights, it's how we incorporate them in our institution, how we like make them like part of our life or in the way that we understand the world. Very complex questions, very difficult things that they were dealing for a long time, because the issue about institutions creating subjects, something that they were dealing in philosophy and sociology for a long time. And the other issue, like the experiment, and this is the last thing, it was used to defend in the trial for all these people that were abusing, torturing prisoners from Afghanistan. You know, you remember these people that were being.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they invite Zimbardo to come to the trial and to justify what these people were doing. To say, like, it's not their fault. It's like, it's bad. Look at this. What they were doing with them is what happened to these people. So it's not individual fault. It's not the subject. It's the institution. It's the group. And it's like some dynamics within all these things that are like not in one point. We tend to do it, always point like to someone. When we say like the war of Afghanistan, it's like George Bush. No, it's not only one point. It's like this capillary system that is distributed between all of us.
And if I can say only one thing about what I was saying, I have written about an idea that Jorge Fernandez, our interim minister, he said like, critics were being hypocrites and asked them to supply an address where illegal migrants should be sent to for food, shelter and jobs. So if our minister, I mean one person who is in this institution say this, maybe you can think about the human rights. One minister is saying, okay, if you want to criticize this, send me your address and I'll send you. And migrants, that for me, well, migrants, it sounds bad, we can say. But the thing is, like, if you have pay attention again, like the last law that they have signed, the Partido Popular, and PSOE, the two main parties in Spain, they have signed now. They have shaked their hands to say like the life sentence. Like after 35 years, maybe we can revise your life sentence. Okay, so it's like just to kick the human rights directly. It's like, I don't mind. I'm going just to prepare the perfect law because I'm going just to say, you maybe you can be a terrorist. So now you go directly to this perfect law. I'm going just to give you maybe a life sentence, and maybe I'll think about to check your life sentence if we want to. The institutions. It sounds a dictatorship. It is not a democracy. So we should pay attention about this, because we are like maybe in the middle of this democracy and this dictatorship. That's very, very dangerous if we don't maybe stop these laws, okay?
You know, we have a responsibility because we have a privilege because of the colour of our skin, depending on where we are and how we talk and how we present ourselves and how we look, you know? And that is what I'm saying to you, is like we can't assume anything, you know, about anything. I've got people who are in the police force, I've got family that have been in the police force, and it's a cultural thing. It's a cultural thing, and it's institutional. And it's the power that goes to those people when they join those institutions. You know, and that's what we've got to get our head around, and we have got to create that space where everybody's welcome and everybody is treated as a human being. And that's...
Look, people perhaps don't know, but in the last 20 years, more than 300 people had died under police custody in this country.
More than 300.
More than 300. I say, I don't know. It's close to 400.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Anthony Granger.
So
Absolutely.
you know, we shouldn't tell myths and stories about, you know,
about England.
Spain is as crap and as shit as England is anywhere. Basically, I mean, in the essentials. Okay, we can distinguish details, but perhaps from time to time a detail makes a difference. I agree with that. But I mean, the essentials.
But are those police officers that you talk about treated like human beings? Are they? Because they are limited in so many senses. They are told exactly what they have to do when they go out onto the streets, onto the front line or whatever. And there's so much that is brainwashing, like with the army, like with...
And I was at Barton Moss.
Yeah, but,
you know,
but like, there's a point,
okay.
There's a point.
All right, okay. I teach my students about that, and I saw the video.
There's a point where they have to sort of say, no, I'm not going to respect what my institution tells me. And also that they can be killed by kindness of non-violent protesters and by people that are standing up for their rights on the streets. And yeah, there's a point where they can say, I'm not going to support this institution any further. Yeah.
And that's the thing, and that's what we have to. That's where we have to be with them.
Yeah, we have to empathise with the police, and that's why I do.
I'm sorry to cut the debate, but we have to leave here and we have to put all those chairs inside. So if you want, we can continue that with a pint or something, or some next Thursday.